morning, good morning, good morning. As you can see, William Coleman, minus Marshawn Taylor, he's out enjoying the wonderful spring break with his daughter, seeing the world, um, hopefully having a good time and enjoying himself. The sports talk, William Coleman, usually with Marshawn Taylor again. In today's wonderful world of sports, we got a lot going on. Of course, we have the national championship. Congratulations to all them Kansas Jayhawk fans. We Tar Heels, we didn't win it, but it's all good. Uh, Overall, I want to say it was an excellent tournament to watch. All the surprise winners, losers, those who made it, those who didn't make it, those who should have made it. It makes me look forward to the next college basketball season. Of course, there was a lot of parity in that where, you had certain teams that people spoke about throughout the year, like the Dukes, the Kansas, which, they did make the Final Four, but they didn't perform as well as some people thought they would, which I think is not, it's not always a great thing to have a dominating team to dominate the whole year, the whole time. Even, like I said, I'm a big fan of the ACC. It always looked like it could have been anybody's league at any time, which always, to me, is a great thing. Well as we always focus on certain teams. Yes, I am a big North Carolina Tar Heel fan, probably one of the biggest in the area, probably one of the most outstanding, lovingly stick by my team to the end, even though we lost the national championship, followers and on the internet or whatnot. But like I said, I actually love this tournament this year. It was actually one of the better ones I've seen in the last maybe 10 years, maybe, I want to say. It brought back the feeling of when I used to watch it when I was about in my little teenage years, trying to, figure out what I'm going to do in this world, which is great. Also, in basketball, regular season's winding down. We're coming down to the last few games here. The play-in is going down. We have, a few teams pushing to the end. My Hornets hopefully play their way into the playoffs and make some noise, but we'll see what happens. As far as the actual playoff itself, it's going to be a great one. It's going to be an excellent basketball tournament this year. I think the West is always going to be competitive, minus even though the Lakers are not going to be a part of it. We oftentimes think, the greatest things for the greatest players, with them being involved, them sitting there trying to put together the best team they can, and it doesn't work out the way it does, due to injury, team chemistry, injury, or whatnot. We just, things don't work out like we should. Of course, the Lakers will not be in. Unfortunately, it was going to be interesting if they had performed as expected, but obviously, they'll be watching from the couch like, some other team. But I mean, overall, I think it's going to be a good playoffs. I think the finals, in my opinion, I'm looking at possibly out the West, it'd probably be Phoenix Suns, and maybe out the East, either the Heat or the Bucks. And then, what I'm saying, maybe the Celtics. Nothing against, Jalen and them guys, but I think they do their thing. They get down and play. But overall, I just feel that it's going to be a great season, a great summer at that. I look forward to watching the first game, and we will see. Now, as far as baseball season started this weekend, and I think the Rebel Dogs played yesterday. One of their first games. Like I said, it was jam-packed out downtown. So, like I said, I look forward to see what this season brings. There's a lot of talk about how it's been a while since the Yankees ever won one. And your time comes when your time comes. I think that we oftentimes we should oftentimes expect a great season. More or less the great teams to win. I think we oftentimes we get away from the reason why we watch these games, no matter the sport, whether it is soccer, no matter it is football, no matter if it is baseball. We at times we worry about who's won it, who hasn't won it in a time, at times. And overall, we look for the end result of our team or that team to become out the champion. And it doesn't necessarily work out like that. For instance, like when the Astros won, and nobody expected the Astros to win. When the Royals won, or years back when the Marlins, I forgot if they were in Miami or still in Florida, when they won it. I mean, things can be predicted, but doesn't always turn out as we expect, we want them to in sports. And I feel that we get out of we forget the value of watching a good sports event, as we say. Now, so what's next on the agenda? Let's take it back to basketball. And what we think is I had a wonderful discussion with Mr. Taylor before he left out for spring break, and what we discussed was how the college game has changed in basketball, how we feel nowadays, or say not just in college, just in all levels, and how women's game, in our opinion, changed is different from the men's game, and how oftentimes, even though it is through name and certain aspects, it's the same game, but it's not the same game. Oftentimes we look for the highlights in the men's game as opposed to the women's game. I mean, they do have highlights. They do. I think it's a fascinating game because it's a more fundamentally based game played by females, by the women, by girls, or however they're looked at, or however they feel they should be looked at. And oftentimes, I feel that on the men's side, we get away from that, because we look for the highlights, the best dunks, the best pass, that shot, that block, or that mix up, that scrum, that always that one thing that makes us want to watch the game even more and makes people want to put more money into that game. And I think a lot of times we often forget that there's a sport that needs to be played. These things we see in the headlines of certain players, doing what they do to, whether it's for attention or whether they feel that, hey, I should be treated in a certain manner, I should give me a certain amount of money. I oftentimes feel that we, as the people that watch these athletes and that aspire to be like them, we feel that that's the sport, that's the game itself, and it's not really not, because no games are being played in the headlines, on the internet, social media, wherever you feel on the bylines, the headlines, we forget that the sport is played on the court, and that's the importance we get away from on all aspects, and I think we need to get back to focusing what's going on in the game, because a lot of times the first thing we talk about when we start a game is the latest and greatest news with what's going on with what individual, on what team, and what sport. Hey, so-and-so had this mix-up, and we're going to see how it affects his game on the court. Well, he's getting paid to come and play. So however he plays is how he plays. I mean, it could be we often take that and we just take into account, well, yeah, so-and-so had this going on with him, so that's why he didn't play too good, or he wasn't hurt, so maybe he hung out too long. And I think a lot of times we play these things out, through the headlines. We play these things out throughout what's going on with them on social media, on the internet. We often forget, like I said, that they're human, and I think that's things we need to teach our kids as they play these sports. That's what's always important. Is one, it's always a game. Don't ever be afraid to fail. Don't ever be afraid to try. But as long as you're in it for the right reason, and not necessarily to aspire to be the best basketball player in the world, but be the best you when you're playing these sports. The best human when you're playing with your teammates. The best teammate, when you're on this team. And I think oftentimes that gets missed. You know, because like I said, we put a ball in our hand. The minute we think we're the next Kobe Bryant, the next LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Kurt Rambis, whomever. And that's just the way we perceive ourselves. But overall, we got to keep in mind that other people watch us, and people see, learn, and gravitate to what we put out there. As athletes, as people for playing any sport. So I mean, that's the gist of it. We don't oftentimes, consider that. We just expect a game. I don't always expect to see LeBron doing a dunk. I always expect to see a good game. I'm always looking forward to a good game. That's what I've always watched sports for. And lately, I've gotten away from that because the headlines, what they got going on, takes away from the joy of watching the game. Watching the sporting event. So I look forward, hopefully, in the future that we get more of a return to that. That people realize that these things we need to see. Not necessarily what's going on with them after the game, before the game, with whomever or whatever, but what's going on the court. I mean, and I know it's hard nowadays with social media, and the things that are being said and mentioned, but I miss sports the way it was, and it may not ever get back to that, but it doesn't hurt to aspire to that, to teach the younger generation this is what's more important, other than a brand, other than what school doing, or what school is doing what, or what school will put you somewhere, because even the greatest athletes don't come from the most biggest schools or the best schools. So, excuse me. So that's what I look forward to it. Hey, somewhere down the line, somebody gets back to saying, "Hey, this is a game and let's play it." This is a sport. Let's have fun. Because that's what it always was about. A lot of these players, athletes, they say that. Hey, I'm doing this. Hey, sometimes you need to express that. Not because you're making millions of dollars, because this is something that you've always wanted to do, regardless if you were getting paid $100 million or just $100 per game or per season. Let's get back to the love. Let's get back to the game itself. I think we're doing more of a takeaway than we are giving back to the game. And I think a lot of times, athletes like Michael Jordan kind of miss, because even though he's made a lot of money to the point he owns a team, I think people don't understand. This man was playing a game that he loved to play. He grew to love to play. That's all he wanted to do was play basketball at some point. Regardless of how much he was getting paid. And I think it's a thing that we need to put into the next generation, is that love for it. Not because there's a possibility of earning X, Y, Z, but because it's a great game, great sport to play. Whether it's basketball or baseball, whatever, it's a fun sport. These are fun sports to play when you love them, when it's fun to you, But when it comes to a point where it's like you said, think about it, when it's a job, you either have a job or something you love to do to get paid, you're gonna give it everything, as opposed to a job, you just show up. It's going to be what it's going to be. And I hate that sometimes for folks. You can tell sometimes some athletes on the court. It's just a lot of times, they may put in a good some good stats, but you can tell like a lot of times they just don't have that love like they used to. And then sometimes you may like, well, maybe you should just stop mailing it in and just call it quits. So, but let's go on to the next thing. As far as what else me and my counterpart discussed, like as far as the men and women's game is, is it the same game? And he brought up a very, very good point. And I think it's a point that I've expressed before. I love watching the women play basketball or play these other sports that men invest in. But fundamentally, it is the same game, but technically it's not because of how the game is played. You know, it's not as physical. It's not as I'm not gonna say it's not as exciting because cause watching, like I said, I like watching a good fundamentally played basketball game, and it's good to see somebody do a clean pivot, do a solid pass, a solid layup, as opposed to doing a funky jump shot or or a lazy pass. It irritates me watching it because I used to play a little bit when I was younger, and the things that were taught to me as being a very decent basketball player was always the fundamentals. And the men's game has gotten away from it. And like I said, they focus more with the men because it's marketable, unfortunately, is the highlights, is the certain milestones they hit, as opposed to, the milestones that the women play and they touch, don't get the highlights, don't get the spotlight, doesn't get all of the appeal, no matter how much they've often tried. And he mentioned that maybe they shouldn't look at it as maybe it should be just like, it shouldn't be just to where you're trying to go the same arena or be in the same realm as the men, but maybe you should try to focus on on the women supporting women, and I kind of thought about it and said maybe it would make sense. But also what I and after we talked about it some more, you often consider that maybe it'll never work out to be the same game. So maybe it should be its own sport, to where not necessarily that we should have the same resources, but maybe there is a way to work it to where it gets to the point it can stand on its own, to where maybe we can always, they can get that notoriety, their own spotlight, their own, their time, because right now it's tied directly into the NBA game, into the men's game, which I don't think is a bad deal, because it's supposed to be, their male, the female counterpart or male, how you want to look at it for the league. And I think oftentimes that we often forget that, and maybe more effort should be pumped into marketing the women's league, because oftentimes they get overlooked, and I think they could be a great example not only for women, but I think also for men as well, for girls and boys, male and female, or however you choose to name yourself these days. But I think that that's something should be looked into more, because I think at one point I think Kobe was even considering, and I think that's what he was working his daughter being towards, that one to break the glass ceiling, to break through, to become that star, to take it to the next level. And I want to commend him for that, because I think he was plotting hard, working, night and day with his daughter to make sure that she was going to be the best player, best Gigi that she was going to be under his tutelage, in his guidance. So, but yeah, we're going to wrap it up here shortly. So, I just want to thank y'all for watching. Thank you for tuning in. Please continue to tune in to 2xposu.com. You check us on Facebook, check us on YouTube, Vintage Sight and Sound. We're on the Twitter, we're on Snapchat, all the little platforms. Like I said, we're working on more content as we speak, as we push forward. Like I said, I want to thank you for, again, thank you, Mr. Ray, Mr. Darrell. We continue to push forward to greater things. Like I said, we're looking forward to giving y'all some great content as we push forward. And like I said, thank you for tuning in. I want to say what's up to, I'm saying happy birthday to me tomorrow. Tomorrow is my birthday. But we'll talk about that on the next show. I don't know. I'm gonna try to keep it clean, though. I'm gonna try to keep it clean. So, so we thank you for watching again. Until next time, thank you and look forward to seeing you again. And I'm out.